Hello, and my name is Rivka, and welcome to Torah Together. We're here for this week's portion. It's Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 18 to chapter 21, verse, I think 8 it is. I forget exactly. But, what we're going to do tonight is kind of a summary sort of session. You tell me how you like it. We're going to talk about just specific parts instead of me sitting here and reading every single line to you. Will you make sure and tell me that everything's coming through all right as I get started here? Is hopefully some more of our guests will sign in and join us and whatnot. They updated the software that I use, and so now it's all weird and there's interesting new little toys to play with. I gotta figure out what to do. So we still have 5 guests. Please, if you're guests, sign in. It's very easy. /login, and then it'll prompt you to give a username and password. It's not really important. It's just to let us know who you are, and also so that you can chat and join in on the conversation, which is the most vital point of the thing. We seem to be having problems with. So I don't know what's going on exactly. Anyways, so chapter 16. We'll begin at verse 18 and we're going to read to verse 22. Verse 16, chapter 16, verse 18. Judges and officers shalt thou make thee in thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, tribe by tribe, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. Thou shalt not wrest judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither shalt thou take a gift, for a gift doth blind the eye of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous. Justice shalt thou follow in thy So, why is this important that the tree not be planted, the pillar not be put next to it? Is because at this time there was a fixation with making idols, statues, pillars of the other gods of the time of the area they're conquering. So this would be why they'd want to change it. So if we look at Proverbs 21:3, to do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. So a midrash taught that God told David that the justice and the righteousness that he did were more beloved to God than the temple. The Midrash noted Proverbs 21:3 does not say as much as sacrifice, but rather more than sacrifice. This Midrash explains that sacrifice were operative only so long as the temple stood, but righteousness and justice hold good even without the temple no longer standing. So that's interesting chapter. So we have the most important idea here, and I'll put it back up again. And that's, a very, important thing, to think about. So, chapter 17, we're going to read, first of all, verses 1 through 5. Verse 1. Thou shalt not sacrifice unto thy God an ox or a sheep wherein is a blemish, even any evil thing, for that is an abomination unto the Lord thy God. If there be found in the midst of thee within any of thy gates where the Lord thy God giveth thee, man or woman, that doeth that which is evil in the sight of the Lord thy God, in transgressing his covenant, and it be told to thee, and thou hear it, and thou shalt inquire diligently, and behold, if it be true, and the thing certain, then that such abomination is wrought in Israel. Thou shalt not bring forth that man or that woman who hath done the evil thing unto thy gates. Even the man or woman thou shalt stone with the stones that they die. So what we have here is it's kind of the Big Brother 1984 thing going on here. If you find out somebody's doing something and they really are doing it, you should turn them in. And I think this is more of not only to keep the society cleansed, sort of, to keep it pure and following its covenant, but also to keep people safe. So verse 6. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall he that is to die be put to death. At the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. Okay, so this tells us that we have to have at least 2, if not 3. 3's preferred witnesses that that the person actually did transgress whatever part of the covenant before they can be put to death, not just 1 witness. So this shows us about justice of the area of the time, the idea of almost the idea of innocent until proven guilty. Rabbi Simeon deduced from the multiple use of the word witnesses in this section in verse 6 that just as 2 witnesses were not executed as perjurers until both had been incriminated, so these were not executed until all 3 had been incriminated. Rabbi Akiba deduced that additional of the 3rd witness in Deuteronomy was to teach that perjury of a 3rd superfluous witness was just as serious as that of the others. He concluded that if Scripture so penalized an accomplice just as one who committed a wrong, how much more would God reward an accomplice to do a good deed? So what does this mean? This means, well, the use of witnesses mean that there must be multiple people, and multiple people are unlikely to perjure themselves, especially once you get to 3. You kind of get the conspiracy idea, but your chances are still statistically dropping. But also, it's telling us, it's concluding that, even though you're going to be penalized for doing something wrong, think of how much more you will be rewarded for doing what you were supposed to do and telling the truth. So, it's an interesting idea. So, verses 8 and 9. If there arise a matter too hard for the judgment between the blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, even matters of controversy within the gates, then shalt thou arise and get thee up to a place where the Lord thy God has chosen. tidbit that you get there. Verses 14 and 15. When thou art come unto the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shalt possess it, and shalt dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me like all nations that are around me. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. One among thy brethren shall thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not put a foreigner over thee, who is not thy brother. So what does this mean? It means, okay, now you're becoming a nation. You're more than just a rabble band of tribes, a couple cities. It's time to pick a king. It's time to pick a leader. So we're going to pick a leader. And just like in the Constitution, there are rules. And the main rule here is that you cannot put a foreigner on the throne. Therefore, it must be an Israelite. So that's interesting to note. The rabbis disagreed about the powers of the king, though. The Gemara reported that Rab Judah said in Samuel's name that the king was permitted to take all the actions that 1 Samuel's enumerated. But Rav said that 1 Samuel's 8 was intended only to frighten the people, citing the empathetic double verb in the words, you shall surely set a king over you, to indicate that the people would fear the king. So that's an interesting thought. What does all that mean? It means that the king should be at a very high level and should have a decision just like we have. The king is the commander-in-chief of the army. It's in order that he be feared and protected and rule, hopefully, prosperously. So, verses 17 through 19. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart not run away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of the kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of the law of the book, out of which is before the priests of the Levites. And to learn and to get information about. The Midrash interpreted the words, neither shall he multiply wives to himself, in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 17, to limit him to no more than 18 wives. That's awful generous, don't you think? 18 wives. Rabbi Judah said that he could not have more wives, provided that they did not turn away his heart. But Rab Simeon said that he must not marry even one wife who would turn away his heart. The Mishnah concluded that Deuteronomy verse 17 prohibited the king from marrying more than 18 wives, even if they were all righteous as Abigail, the wife of David. So we find something very interesting. 18 wives. Can you imagine? We're gonna put the cap at 18. One's gotta be enough. That's what I'm getting. But 18, how could not one of 18 turn your heart away? It would. 18. That's a reality TV show for you right there. The king and his 18 wives. The Mishnah interpreted the words, and silver and gold he shall not greedily multiply to himself, in verse 17, as to limit to the king to only as much silver and gold as he needed to pay his soldiers. So basically, he should just have enough to take care of himself. Why 18, I'm getting asked? I have absolutely no idea. That's what the rabbis decided, 18. It was popular amongst that time that a king would take multiple wives. To have many wives was to be a rich man. And so capping it at 18 kind of says, all right, you can have some of the opulent splendor of being a king, but not too much, just a little. So, verse 20. Let me see. Let's do verse 19 again. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of his law and these statutes, and to do to them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he be turned not aside from the commandment, or to the right hand, or to the left, to the end he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the manner of Israel. So basically, again, always carry the book so you can learn from what's going on and you can know what's going on. Keep your ledgers, keep your books together. So chapter 18, we're going to start by reading verses 1 through 5. The priests, the Levites, even all the tribe of Levi, shall have no portion nor inheritance within Israel. They shall eat the offerings of the Lord made by fire and his inheritance. And they shall have no inheritance among their brethren, the Lord that is their inheritance, that he hath spoken unto them. And this shall be the priest's due from the people. From them that offer a sacrifice, whether it be ox or sheep, they shall give unto the priest the shoulder and the 2 cheeks, and the jaw. The first fruits of the corn, of the wine, and of thine oil, and of thy fleece, and of the sheep, thou givest him. For thy Lord thy God hath chosen him out of all the tribes to stand and minister in the name of the Lord and his sons forever. So what does Talmud say? How do the sages interpret this? It's taught that it's a symbol of the deeds of Phinehas, explained. That verse 3 directed that the priest would receive the foreleg, the cheeks, and the stomach of the sacrifice. The foreleg represented the hand of Phinehas, from Numbers 25, verse 7, that reports that Phinehas took a spear to his hand. The cheeks represent the prayers of Phinehas, as Psalms 106, 30, verse 30 reports that then Phinehas stood up and prayed, and so the plague was stayed. The stomach was to be taken as its literal sense, for Numbers 25:8 reports that Phinehas thirsts the woman through her belly. So it's interesting the answers that the Talmud came up with for why these specific parts were to be left for the Levites. Who knows? So, verse 15 through 19. We'll look at a picture of King David. This is as close as we get to a prophet at this point. But in verse 15 it says, Deuteronomy 18 verse 15, Moses foretold that a prophet will the Lord your God rise up from you, ... like me. And Rabbi Yohan thus taught that prophets would have to be like Moses, strong, wealthy, wise, and meek. So I thought, would they? What about, wouldn't they be of a lower class? Wouldn't it be someone to listen to, the proletariat maybe? Why not make them weak with words so that they too need someone like Aaron? Why give Moses these attributes of strong, wealthy, and wise, and meek? To say, to look for prophet, when in reality it's who speaks the truth. I don't know what you think about that. Chapter 19. We're going to read verses 1 through 6 first. When the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations, whose land the Lord thy God giveth thee, and thou dost succeed him, and dwelt in their cities and in their houses, thou shalt separate these cities, for in their midst of thy land which the Lord thy God giveth thee to possess. Thou shalt prepare thee the way, and divide the borders of thy land which the Lord thy God causeth thee to inherit into 3 parts, that every manslayer may fleeth there. So we get So what does this mean? This means there's always a safe harbor for accidental deaths. The Midrash taught that those who were killed in error went into banishment, though. One could go into banishment if, for example, one was putting a roller on a roof and the roller slipped over and fell and killed someone. One would go into banishment if one was lowering a crank, it fell down and killed someone. One would go into banishment if while going down a ladder one fell and killed someone, but would not go into banishment if while pulling up the roller it fell back and killed someone, or while raising a bucket the rope snapped and the falling bucket killed someone, or while going up a ladder one fell down and killed someone. So basically what's going on here is explaining what is permanent banishment. Permanent banishment is being sent to live in another city away from your family. So what's going on here is the Midrash is defining what is a manslayer. What is the difference between inactively killing someone and actively being responsible for killing someone. So it's very interesting. The sages say that a person did not go into banishment if the something like the split log rebounding killed someone. A rabbi would say that the person went into banishment. But if the sages say that the person did not go into banishment because they're not necessarily required to. Intention was the key there, not malice. Aforethought, that's the question. And indeed. And also the question is responsibility. Did you hoist up that bucket with a rope that's only rated for 20 pounds when you knew the bucket was carrying 60 pounds of weight? That would be your negligence rather than simply an accident like your axe head flying off. Premeditated versus manslaughter. Very, very much so. That's what's being defined here. That's the most of chapter 19. So, chapter 20. We're going to read verses 1 through 4 first. When thou goest forth to battle against thine enemies, and thou seest horses and chariots, that's a very interesting interpretation. One person says they go even further in a way with premeditated back to the murder because of the need of responsibility. That is, applies that you must premeditate your actions, but in the right way, thinking about the bucket and the rope. Right. That's just following common sense and safety laws. Laws are there for a reason. That's why I've never really understood anarchists. I can understand rebelling against unfair laws, but not against laws that are there for safety. So that's really where I got to. Chapter 21, we're only 8 verses into it. It's not really talking about much of anything. Is there any questions anyone had about this week's portion? Would you like me to explain something further? Would you like to talk about the laws a little more? Chapter 21 basically interprets the laws of finding a corpse. Who's responsible for burial and sacrificing a cow for the dead, and so on and so on and so forth. So it's not, the most important thing. We'll have to do next week. We'll have to back up to it and start from there anyways. So, I know I only took a half hour to go through that. I hope you liked the way I did it. If you did, please let me know. My email, as always, is Rivka, RIVKA, at PunkTorah.org. If you've enjoyed this, if you have the ability to donate some money to PunkTorah to keep things free and to maybe make some things ad-free, you can always send us money through PayPal at PunkTorah@gmail.com. If you don't have money, you can always donate goods or time. you can teach a class, you can hold a prayer service. There's always work to be done, and always a need for someone to do it. So get excited and find something to do. Thank you so much for coming this week, and I've enjoyed this, and I hope that I am in good enough health to see you next week, and I hope you are as in good a health to see me as well. Take care and have a blessed day.